Hi, Esri. Today we are going to continue our learning about the new text type that we explored yesterday. And I'm sure you all remember that that text type was called a myth. Yesterday we learnt the features of a myth and we used our bubble map to show those different features. Now, yesterday we discovered that there are lots of similarities between a myth and a narrative. And we used our double bubble to think about what was the same and what was different about those texts so that we could decide whether a text was a myth or a narrative. You needed to sort the text into myths and narratives. And here you can see the answers. So our myths were Hercules, Theseus and the Minotaur, Odysseus, Jason and the Golden Fleece, Little Red Riding Hood, Paddington Bear, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Cat in the Hat. Everyone did such a great job of sorting those different text types, and you had to use your knowledge of what a myth was in order to do that, because you didn't know what all of those texts were about, but you used the clues in the titles and the front covers to help you, and that was great inference skills. For example, I know lots of you got a little bit stuck with Odysseus. The children at school got a little bit stuck with that one. And what they had to do was look at the front cover and they noticed a supernatural being. They noticed a mythical creature because they noticed that there was a creature that looked quite like an octopus, but it had a human head. And that helped them to know that this was a myth. Some children also remembered that Odysseus was an ancient Greek hero, and they used that knowledge to know that this text was made by the early civilizations. So great work, everybody. We're feeling really confident with the features of a myth. Now, today we are going to be using this mythical story planner here that we looked at yesterday. And hopefully you can all remember that this mythical story planner is used to sequence the different events in a myth, a little bit like the story mountain that we use to sequence a narrative. It just has those different features put into it, like the quest and the mythical monster. Today, we are going to be learning to sequence the key parts of a myth. How? By retrieving old learning. And why? So that we can order and summarise the key parts of a myth called Theseus and the Minotaur. So today we're going to be reading a myth and then sequencing that myth, the key parts, using our myth planner. Now remember, sequence means to order, okay, so to put things into order, and we've done that skill lots in year 3, and that's what our arrows are showing just here. Now, before we start to think about how the mythical story planner can be used to sequence events, it's important that we rewind to the different parts of a mythical story planner. So here you can see our arrows leading from one part to another. And we have to follow this order when we're planning. So an author, before they write their myth, they plan those different key parts onto a planner just like this. So it's important that we do that too. Here you can see the different titles of the parts, and we looked at these yesterday. So we have our setting and our hero. Our hero faces a dilemma. They go on a quest. They often get given some powers. What happens next? Once they have arrived at their destination, they meet the mythical monster. What happens then with the mythical monster? They get into some conflict, and then our story ends with the resolution. Now, here you can see a word mat that shows you the meaning of some of those key words on our mythical story planner. So I'm just going to talk through those with you. So a hero is somebody who's brave and who likes to save the day. Quest is a long journey to find something. A dilemma is a problem. mythical monster, so an imaginary creature that usually has human and animal parts. Conflict is a disagreement, for example, an argument or a battle. So conflict is when two characters or more have a disagreement, okay, and sometimes that can be through an argument or something more physical like a battle. And finally, a resolution is solving a problem. And lots of us were really confident with the meaning of resolution yesterday because we remember that from our story mountains. Now, it's important that we know what these words mean today so that when we are sequencing Theseus and the Minotaur, we can link parts of the story to the planner. So if we know what a hero is, we will be able to think about what character is the hero in the myth. So we're going to pause now and we're going to write down any of these words and the meanings that we think we might forget later on in the learning episode. I'm going to write my date first. Wednesday. Don't forget that D, Wednesday, 3rd of February, to help us remember, 2021. Two spellings that we often forget in year 3. So make sure that you're spelling those correctly today. It is English, and we are sequencing a myth. Now, I'm not going to write down all of the words and their meanings because there are some that I already know. I'm only going to write down the words and meanings that I think I might forget that are new to me. So I'm going to write down the meanings of the word quest and conflict because those are the ones that I'm feeling less confident with. So I know that a quest is a long journey to find something, but I'm just going to write the words that are in red because they are the key words to help me with this definition. So a quest is a long journey, and my other word was conflict, which is a disagreement. And an example of a disagreement in a myth is a battle. Okay, so I've written my 2 words and their meaning. What I want you to do now is choose any of the words that you think you need to remember and write them in your book. Well done, year 3. Now, what we're going to do next is think about how this mythical story planner is used by authors to sequence the key events in a myth. So before we read Theseus and the Minotaur and sequence it, I want to show you an example of a different myth and how that was planned using this myth planner. So another very famous Greek myth is Odysseus and Cyclops. And here you can see on the mythical story planner how an author would have planned this myth by sequencing the different events. And here you can see that I've used images to show this. So what I'm going to do now is talk through this myth with you, thinking about each of the parts of our sequence. So Odysseus and Cyclops, this myth was set in a place called Sicily. Now, the hero in this myth was Odysseus, who is a famous Greek hero. The dilemma in this myth was that there was a mythical creature called the Cyclops who lived in a cave in Sicily. Now, our hero, Odysseus, wanted to defeat the Cyclops. Okay, so he then went on a quest, and I know that means a long journey. I've written that into my box set book, from Greece to Sicily. Now, when he arrived and he went into the cave of the Cyclops with his men, he found some milk and cheese, so he found some food and drink to enjoy inside the cave. Okay, so he wasn't given a power, but he was given a gift. Next, Odysseus and his men enjoyed the food and drink and the gift that they'd been given. After that, the mythical monster appeared in the myth, and the Cyclops came out of his cave and noticed that these strangers were inside his cave eating and drinking food. Now, the Cyclops wasn't very happy about this, so what did he do to try and stop the quest? Well, he then rolled a huge rock boulder to the entrance of the cave to try and stop Odysseus and his men from getting out of the cave. Of course, Odysseus and his men wanted to solve this problem. They wanted to defeat the Cyclops. So they gave Cyclops some wine, which made him very, very sleepy. And here you can see that the Cyclops is asleep here. And what Odysseus and his men do is they get a large piece of wood and they burn it from their fire and they put it into the Cyclops's eye. Okay, so the conflict, I know in my book that means a disagreement or a battle. Okay, so I know here that I've got my two sets of characters having a disagreement. It's not exactly a bloody battle, but it is a battle because the characters hurt the Cyclops. Okay, now the resolution, how is the dilemma solved? Well, the characters, Odysseus and his men, whilst the Cyclops is sleeping and he can't see, he's trying to catch them, but he can't see them, they escape out of the cave on some sheep. And here you can see them getting back onto their ship and going back to Greece. The Cyclops is there chasing them, but he can't see because his eye it doesn't work anymore. He's half blind. Okay, so was our dilemma solved? Yes, it was. The Cyclops was defeated. He could no longer see, and the men, Odysseus and his men, were able to return to ancient Greece. So hopefully that showed you how the mythical story planner can be used to sequence the different events of a myth. If you want to talk through that myth now, you can pause the screen and do that. Now, next, we are going to read our myth. So this is the exciting part. We're going to read Theseus and the Minotaur. Okay, after that, it's your job today to sequence those key events in the myth on the story planner, just like I've shown you with the example before. So I'm just going to get the book ready and then I will read this myth to you. I know that you're going to love this. I'm going to read this myth to you from our Greek myths book. So I'm going to use my contents page to find the myth that I want to read. So here I can see my different myths. I want to read Theseus and the Minotaur, which is here. So I can find that on page 71. Here it is, Theseus and the Minotaur. So I want you to listen to the story now. Okay, so get comfortable and be ready to enjoy this story. Theseus and the Minotaur. There used to be a great many kings in the world, because every city and every island called itself a kingdom. But one king and one island struck fear into all the rest. King Minos of Crete so terrified his neighbours that they paid him tributes every year to be left in peace. It was King Minos who built a palace with a cellar-like maze. It was King Minos who kept a monster called the Minotaur in his famous labyrinth and fed it on human flesh. Okay, so in Crete, there was an evil king called King Minos who had a monster called the Minotaur, and he kept his Minotaur in a maze that was called a labyrinth, and he used to feed it on human flesh. Why do we send tributes to Crete every year? Prince Theseus asked his father, the king of Athens. To keep King Minos from sinking our ships or making war on us, said King Aegeus, though he did not like to talk about it. And what do we send? 7 men and 7 women, said the king. As slaves? Not as slaves, said the king reluctantly, to feed the Minotaur. How revolting! Never again, Theseus vowed. This year, I'll go as one of the 14 and kill this Minotaur. So, back in Athens, King Aegeus, king of Athens, and his son, Prince Theseus, were talking about King Minos, okay? And because King Minos had to send 7 girls and 7 boys over to Crete every year to be eaten by the Minotaur, Prince Theseus wasn't happy. He's beginning to sound like a bit of a hero to me because he wants to solve the problem. Nothing the king could say would change his mind. As the tributes set sail, the old man called from the dockside. Good luck, son. I shall keep watch on the cliff top every day. If you succeed, raise a new white sail. If you fail, raise a black one. I shall succeed, called Theseus. So now, Prince Theseus has got on his ship and he is going on his journey to Crete to find King Minos and the Minotaur. He's going on a long journey. What's this called? King Minos laughed to see the prisoners arrive from Athens. Who'll be first into the Minotaur's den? He asked. I shall, said Theseus, stepping forward. I, Prince Theseus of Athens, claim that honour. You boasting young puppy, snarled Minos. My Minotaur will make short work of you. Gods, put the prince into the labyrinth. Yeah, so Theseus has arrived in Crete. He's met King Minos and he has offered to be first into the Minotaur's den. Behind the throne, the king's plain little daughter, Ariadne, was sat listening. She was ashamed of her father's cruelty and hated to see how he fed the horrible beast in the basement. She was still more unhappy when she saw brave and handsome Theseus dragged away to feed the monster. So King Minos had a daughter called Ariadne who didn't like her evil father. Down went Theseus into the dark, but he paused, not knowing which way to go. The guards marched away. Prince Theseus! It was Ariadne. Here, take this. She dropped down to him a ball of string. Ooh, what part of the myth is this? Theseus is being given something to help him. Even if you kill the Minotaur, you won't ever find your way back to the entrance unless you use this. Excellent, exclaimed Theseus. I could marry a girl as clever as you. Then he tied one end to the entrance and set off, unwinding the string as he went, forgetting everything but the Minotaur. So the piece of string is going to help Theseus find his way out of the labyrinth of the maze because it's so dark inside. But Ariadne didn't forget. Theseus felt his way in the dark. It was true. Without the string, he would have soon have been hopelessly lost in the maze of winding corridors. Suddenly, his fingers brushed warm, wiry hair, then the bony curve of a horn. The Minotaur bellowed in his ear and flung him through the darkness. It stamped on him with sharp hooves. The string was knocked out of his hand. They fought in utter darkness. The monster, half man, half bull, crushed him between hairy arms and lashed him with his tail. Oh no, it's not looking great for Theseus, is it? Theseus took hold of the horns and twisted them first one way and then the other. He kicked and butted and struggled, and at last the beast gave a gurgling gasp and fell dead. He's defeated the Minotaur. Filled with panic, the prince scrabbled around for the ball of string. There! No, that was the Minotaur's ear. There! Yes! Now he had to only wind it in and retrace his steps. So he's found the string and now he needs to find his way out of the labyrinth. At the door of the labyrinth, Ariadne stood waiting. You're alive! You've escaped, she cried, and she took him by the hand and hurried him away. They freed the other 13 prisoners, then ran to the harbour. You must take me with you or my father will kill me too, said Princess Ariadne. Of course, come aboard, said Theseus, raising the old black sail with 2 pulls of his strong arms. The sail filled and they were at sea before anyone knew they had escaped. Now, does anybody remember what Theseus's dad told him to do if he defeated the Minotaur? He said to change the sail from black to white, and Theseus has forgotten to do that. Theseus sat on the deck in the sunshine and thought about what he had done. He was proud. His father would be proud too. I must change this sail for a white one, he was thinking. But just then Ariadne came and sat at his feet, gazing up at him. How wonderful, she sighed, to be free of my wicked father and to be married to a brave prince. Married? Said Theseus, turning rather pale. He suddenly realised that just because Ariadne had saved his life, she expected to marry him. He said. How wonderful. I don't think Theseus wants to marry Princess Ariadne. On the way home, the ship put in at an island for supplies. Theseus sent Ariadne ashore to buy wine and bread. While she was gone, he set sail and hurried away, breathing a sigh of relief. When I marry, he said, it will be to a beautiful queen or a goddess, not Princess Ariadne. He was in such a hurry to get away that he quite forgot to change the black sail for a white one. Can anybody predict what's going to happen when Theseus arrives back in Athens? What's his dad going to think when he sees the black sail? King Aegeus, watching day after day from the cliff below Athens, saw the ship as it came into view. He saw the black sail full of wind, and in that moment he believed his son Theseus had been killed and eaten by the Minotaur. He threw himself off the high white cliff and into the water below. And ever afterwards the sea was called the Aegean Sea, after the father of that ungrateful hero, Theseus. Oh dear, so it's quite a sad ending to this myth. Even though Theseus was able to defeat the Minotaur, he forgot to change the sail on his ship. So his father, King Aegeus, thought he was dead. Now, hopefully you remember that a myth gives the ancient Greek people lessons for their lives after they've read them. What do you think the lesson of this story, of this myth is? I want you to talk about that with somebody around you. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is sequence the key events of this myth. So we're going to use our mythical story planner to sequence the key events of Theseus and the Minotaur. Before we do that, I want us to pause and remember what these key words mean. So what are the missing words behind these definitions? So a hero is somebody who is, well done, brave and likes to save the day. A quest is a long what to find something. Well done, it's a long journey. A dilemma. It's a dilemma. Another word for a dilemma. Well done, it's a problem that needs to be solved. A mythical monster. A real key feature of a myth. It is an that usually has human and animal parts. What is it? Well done, it's an imaginary creature. A conflict is a disagreement between the characters. For example, an argument or a battle. Well done. And finally, the resolution is a problem. It means solving the problem. Well done. Okay, let me show you what your task is today. Today, you are going to sequence Theseus and the Minotaur, and you're going to think about what happens in each of those key parts of the myth. So here you can see that the setting, so where does the story start? I know that in Theseus and the Minotaur, we are introduced to evil King Minos, who lives on the island of Crete. I have created some pictures of the story and a short summary of what happens in each part. What you need to do is decide which event links to which part of the myth planner. Okay, let me show you how to do that now. So on Class Dojo, you have got this activity sheet here. And on the activity sheet, you have got the key events of Theseus and the Minotaur. However, they are not in order. It is your job today to sequence these key events of Theseus and the Minotaur so that they are in order. Okay, so here you can see that number 1 is that Theseus defeated the Minotaur and it fell to the floor and died. We know that that doesn't happen at the start of the myth. At the beginning of the myth, we know that we should be introduced to the setting. So here is how you can complete today's activity. So you can see that in my box set book, I've drawn a straight line underneath my key knowledge, and underneath that, I've written a list of the key parts of the mythical story planner. Setting, hero, dilemma, quest, powers, next, mythical monster, then conflict resolution. What I then need to do is match each of the events on the activity sheet to each of those parts of the myth story planner. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is read the events onto my sheets. Then I need to match them together. So I know that the first part of my myth is introducing the setting. Okay, so on my sheet, I know that the main setting at the beginning of Theseus and the Minotaur is the island of Crete, because this is where King Minos and the Minotaur live. On my sheet, that is event number 2, which says, King Minos lived on the island of Crete with his man-eating Minotaur, who lived in a dark labyrinth. So what I need to do then is tick off number 2, and next to the setting, just write down the number 2. Okay? After that, I need to think about who my hero is. I know that the hero in this story is Theseus, because he is brave and he tries to save the day. So then I need to look onto my activity sheet and find the event that introduces Theseus. It is here. Number 6 says, Theseus was King Aegis's son, who lived in Athens. King Aegeus was king of Athens. I can tick that off and write number 6 next to my hero. I want you to complete the rest of those parts of the myth by matching the events to the part. Okay, well done Year 3. We will look at the answers to this tomorrow. Bye.